My daily day's struggle. Arthur often felt like a ghost, drifting through his mundane daily day's struggle. Every morning brought the same anxieties, a heavy cloak draped over his shoulders, making simple interactions feel like monumental tasks. He yearned for connection, for the ability to articulate his thoughts, but words always seemed to stick stubbornly in his throat. This quiet solitude was becoming his unwelcome companion, day after lonely day. The weight of unspoken words pressed down on him, a silent burden he carried everywhere. He would watch others chat effortlessly, their conversations flowing like a gentle river, while his own mind remained a stagnant pond. This constant feeling of being on the outside looking in deeply affected his confidence and general well-being, leaving him rather deflated. He yearned to engage, to contribute to discussions, perhaps even to crack a joke and elicit a chuckle. Yet, the fear of mispronunciation, of misunderstanding, or simply of being judged, paralyzed him every single time. His social circle remained tragically small, a reflection of his pervasive shyness. Even simple errands, like buying groceries from the local shop or ordering a cuppa at the cafe, became daunting expeditions. He would meticulously rehearse short phrases in his head, only for them to vanish the moment a shop assistant looked his way, causing an embarrassing internal scramble. This daily struggle was exhausting, mentally and emotionally draining him before the day had even properly begun. Arthur knew something had to change, a fundamental shift in his approach to life and interaction. He couldn't continue living in such a self-imposed, isolated bubble, feeling perpetually overwhelmed. One rainy afternoon, sheltering in a small bookshop from a sudden downpour, an old gentleman offered him a recommendation. He spoke clearly, with a gentle, reassuring tone. Arthur realized the power in that simple, confident exchange, a stark contrast to his own internal turmoil and hesitations. That brief encounter sparked a flicker of hope within him. The old man's calm delivery highlighted what Arthur truly lacked, the ability to speak with people effortlessly and without crippling fear. He needed a way to bridge the chasm between his thoughts and his spoken words. He pondered over his predicament, sitting on a park bench, watching the pigeons peck at crumbs. His biggest barrier wasn't a lack of intelligence, but a lack of practical application and, crucially, a severe deficit in self-belief. He needed a structured path, a reliable method for improvement. The thought of learning English properly started to germinate, not just for academic purposes, but as a key to unlocking social doors. He imagined himself confidently navigating conversations, truly participating in life, rather than merely observing from the sidelines. It felt like a monumental aspiration. He began to research methods, poring over articles and online forums late into the night. How to learn English, he typed repeatedly, seeking guidance. The common thread in all the advice he found was clear: immersion, consistency, and a readiness to step outside one's comfort zone. A crucial piece of advice kept reappearing: why reading is so important. This resonated deeply with Arthur, who had always enjoyed stories, but rarely considered reading as a tool for language acquisition. He decided to begin his journey right there, in the quiet pages of a book. He started small, with children's books initially, feeling a peculiar mix of embarrassment and determination. The simple sentence structures and familiar vocabulary built a foundational confidence. He savored each new word, looking them up in his worn-out dictionary, expanding his mental lexicon gradually. Reading became his daily ritual, a peaceful sanctuary where words transformed from intimidating symbols into friendly companions. He graduated to short stories, then to classic British novels. Each page turned was a step forward, a silent conversation with the author, teaching him nuance. He discovered that reading wasn't just about vocabulary, it was about understanding sentence construction, grammatical patterns, and the rhythm of the English language. It opened up a world of expressions he hadn't known existed, broadening his conceptual framework considerably and effortlessly. Through reading, he began to internalize the flow of natural English, how ideas connect, and how tone is conveyed through written words. It was like acquiring an invisible map, guiding him through the intricate landscape of spoken communication. His mind felt more agile. Beyond just books, he started reading everything: newspaper headlines, bus timetables, cereal boxes, and even the small print on product labels. Every written word became an opportunity to learn, to reinforce his understanding, and to build recognition of common phrases, feeling very keen. This consistent exposure, silently soaking in the language, provided a robust foundation for his next big step: active listening. He realized that understanding spoken English was just as vital as understanding written text, a crucial bridge towards fluency and confident speech. He began listening to British podcasts during his morning commute, starting with those aimed at beginners, gradually progressing. The presenters' accents, intonations, and common idioms became familiar companions. He'd often pause and repeat phrases, trying to mimic the pronunciation accurately. BBC Radio 4 became a background hum in his flat, even when he wasn't actively listening. News programs, dramas, and even comedy shows filled his quiet space. This constant auditory input was subtle yet powerful, training his ear to the various cadences of proper English. Films and TV series, watched with subtitles initially, then without, further immersed him in spoken English. He paid close attention to how characters interacted, the natural pauses, the emphasis on certain words, and the unspoken cues that accompany verbal communication. It was quite enlightening. The combination of extensive reading and immersive listening started to bear fruit. He found himself recognizing more words, understanding complex sentences, and even anticipating certain phrases. His comprehension improved dramatically, boosting his confidence in understanding others, a major milestone. However, comprehension was only half the battle. The greatest hurdle remained: how to talk in English. The idea of actually producing the language, of having a real-time conversation, still filled him with a pervasive sense of dread and an intense internal pressure. He knew he needed to start talking, but where? The thought of immediate public speaking was terrifying. Then he remembered some advice: start talking at home. This seemed like a safe, manageable first step, a private arena for practice without judgment. He began by narrating his daily activities aloud to himself. I am making a cup of tea now. The water is boiling. I will add milk. Simple sentences, repeated often, helped him to articulate thoughts directly into spoken words, building muscle memory for his tongue. He would read passages from his favorite books aloud, trying to match the rhythm and intonation he'd heard on podcasts. He even started having mock conversations with imaginary people, arguing both sides of a simple topic, which felt somewhat silly but surprisingly effective. This start talking at home phase was crucial for building foundational confidence in speaking. It allowed him to make mistakes privately, to correct his pronunciation without embarrassment, and to become comfortable hearing his own voice speaking English, feeling more assured. He also used mirror practice, observing his mouth movements and facial expressions as he spoke. This visual feedback helped him refine his articulation and feel more natural. It was a bizarre but effective technique for overcoming self-consciousness about speaking aloud. Listen and practice became his unwavering mantra. He listened intently, then he practiced diligently. The two activities were intertwined, each reinforcing the other, creating a virtuous cycle of improvement. He was slowly but surely chipping away at his fear of speaking. His next step was to gently push his boundaries beyond the confines of his flat. He decided to begin with very low-stakes interactions. His first target, the local post office, where he only needed to utter a few simple phrases, feeling a nervous anticipation. "Good morning, a first-class stamp, please," he managed, his voice a little shaky but audible. The transaction was seamless, the post office clerk polite and unconcerned. This small victory felt enormous, a significant crack in the wall of his fear, very encouraging. Buoyed by this success, he started attempting small conversations with shopkeepers. "Lovely weather today, isn't it?" Or, "Could you recommend a good biscuit?" These brief exchanges, though trivial, slowly built his confidence in navigating real-world interactions, making him feel braver. He discovered that most people were patient and understanding, rarely judging his hesitant English. This realization was liberating, dissolving some of the intense pressure he had placed upon himself. He learned that mistakes were part of the process, not a sign of failure. How to make confidence in speaking became less of a question and more of a natural progression. Each successful interaction, no matter how brief, added a tiny brick to his confidence edifice, slowly but surely making it taller and more resilient. He began attending a local English conversation group advertised at the community center. This was a much bigger leap, but the supportive environment of fellow learners proved invaluable. Here, he could practice without the pressure of perfect fluency, a true blessing. In these sessions, he actively participated, asking questions, sharing opinions, and engaging in light-hearted banter. The more he spoke, the easier it became. His brain seemed to rewire itself, making the connection between thought and speech almost instantaneous and natural. He realized that confidence didn't magically appear. It was meticulously built, brick by brick, word by word, interaction by interaction. It was the cumulative effect of consistent effort and a willingness to embrace imperfection, a truly profound personal revelation. The fear of silence, of awkward pauses, gradually diminished. He learned to listen actively, to formulate his responses, and to ask clarifying questions when needed. The conversations became less about avoiding mistakes and more about genuinely connecting with others. Arthur found himself seeking out opportunities to speak English, rather than avoiding them. He started volunteering at a local charity shop, where he interacted with customers and colleagues daily, gaining invaluable real-world experience and enhancing his fluency. His accent, while still distinctly his own, became clearer and more understandable. He paid attention to the feedback, both verbal and nonverbal, adjusting his pronunciation and intonation. He was constantly refining his spoken English, aiming for greater clarity. He started to enjoy the spontaneity of conversations, the unpredictable twists and turns that made each interaction unique. He no longer needed to plan every sentence in advance. Words flowed more naturally, surprising even himself with their newfound ease. The initial struggle, the daily grind, now seemed like a distant memory, a necessary part of his journey. He looked back at his shy, isolated self with a gentle understanding, appreciating how far he had come through sheer dedication and perseverance. He became an advocate for language learning, sharing his story with others who felt similarly stuck. He emphasized the power of consistent reading, the importance of active listening, and the absolute necessity of starting to speak, even if only at home. His personal transformation was remarkable. He no longer felt like a ghost, but a vibrant, engaged individual, ready to embrace new experiences. The world, once a daunting place of unspoken challenges, had opened up, full of opportunities for genuine connection. He found joy in simple chats with his neighbors about the weather or local events. He could confidently discuss current affairs with colleagues during lunch breaks, no longer fearing judgment or struggling to find the right words, feeling quite at ease. The ability to speak with people had truly changed his life. It wasn't just about English. It was about reclaiming his voice, finding his place in the world, and building meaningful relationships. Language had been the key, unlocking his potential fully. Arthur's journey continued, of course. Language learning is a lifelong endeavor, a constant process of refinement and discovery. But the foundational steps he had taken had equipped him with the tools and, crucially, the mindset for continuous improvement. He still kept up his reading habit, delving into more complex literature and nonfiction, expanding his knowledge base and vocabulary. Reading remained a cornerstone of his learning, providing new structures and expressions to incorporate into his speech. Listening continued to be paramount. He'd often catch new idioms or expressions from British television programs, making a mental note to try incorporating them into his own conversations, adding color and authenticity to his spoken words. And speaking was now a pleasure, not a chore. He joined a local hiking club and found himself chatting away with fellow hikers, discussing everything from rambles to current affairs, enjoying the free flow of conversation. He even started volunteering to read stories at a local primary school, his voice clear and confident as he enchanted the children with tales. This was an unthinkable scenario just a few years prior, a testament to his incredible progress and dedication. His advice to anyone struggling was always the same: embrace reading wholeheartedly. It's the silent teacher that builds your inner library of words and structures, preparing you for the battlefield of conversation. Don't underestimate its profound power. Then, listen relentlessly. Let the sounds and rhythms of the language wash over you, seep into your subconscious. Absorb the accents, the intonations, the speed. It's the essential bridge between understanding and being understood, a critical step forward. And most importantly, practice, practice, practice. Start talking at home, to yourself, to your pet, to the mirror. Get comfortable with the sound of your own voice speaking English, however imperfectly, before venturing out into public. Every small attempt, every brave word uttered, contributes to that invaluable commodity, confidence. It won't happen overnight, but with persistence, the daily day's struggle will transform into daily days of discovery and joyful communication. That's Arthur's unwavering belief. So, if you're navigating your own language journey, remember Arthur. His transformation from crippling shyness to confident communicator is a testament to perseverance, the power of reading, and the courage to simply start talking. You can absolutely do it too.